hear it, but I'm actually going to make us both wait for just a second while I say two things. First, thank you. Thank you for listening, especially sustaining members of the lab. We are listener supported. It's how and why we do what we do. That was thing the first. Okay, thing the second is, if you want to join the lab, now is a really good time to do it. To sweeten the pot, if you join this month, you get a free Radiolab t-shirt. It'll make you look great, but also approachable. Anyway, to join and get that shirt, go to radiolab.org/join. That's radiolab.org/join. On to the show.
Oh, wait, you're listening?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
You're
Listening
to Radiolab.
Radio
From
WNYC.
See?
Yep.
Okay, so I am. This is unusual because I usually prep so much, but I have not really prepped that much at all.
All right, you're flying fast and loose
I'm flying very loose here.
with secret intel about the government and poison? No.
Something.
Is this about poison?
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay, let's just do the thing.
All right. Hey, I'm Lulu Miller.
I'm Latif Nasser.
This is Radiolab.
Okay, basically, I was just like nosing around and I found this article in a journal called Nature Machine Intelligence.
Nature Machine Intelligence. Okay.
And this is a few months ago. It was in March. I don't even know what I was looking for and I just found this paper. And it had this weird kind of boring title that I didn't understand, but I like started reading it. And the tone of it, there was something about the tone of it that was sort of breathless. Like, oh my God, we just discovered this thing and it's kind of scary. And we're not the only ones who are able to find this thing. We're not the only ones who are actually looking for this thing. And it felt like calamitous. And by the time I finished it, I was breathless. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, is this what I think it is? Because if it is, this thing is terrifying.
Okay, what's the thing?
Okay, so let me just start from the beginning. I was just trying to manufacture out of nothing a kind of open tease.
No, I mean, I'm in.
Okay, so here's what happened. So our scene begins with la 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 la.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm muted. This guy named Sean.
Hey!
I'm muted. Duh. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
So Sean, I just I gotta say, when I read your paper, basically my jaw dropped and I wanted to hear you tell the story.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you how it came about. It took quite a long time to get out.
Well, before we get there, if you don't mind my interrupting, let's actually rewind a little bit. Like, who are you? What is your company? What do you do?
So my name's Sean Eakins. I'm the CEO of Collaborations Pharmaceuticals, and this is a company based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I founded it 2015, and we work on using computational approaches for doing drug discovery.
Which basically means what they do is they use AI to discover new medicines. You're a medicine hunter and you do it through computers.
Exactly, yes.
So essentially what they do is they've built, like, using a lot of like open source technology, a lot of like open source like databases of drugs. They basically created this computer program that's kind of like a search engine. And so they call it Megasyn or Megasyn. How do you say it?
Yeah,
Megasyn.
So it was a really quick name for megasynthesis.
Oh, so and sort of synthesizing drugs that exist with receptors in brains and
kind of. It's a little complicated.
It's one of those strange things where, like, I don't use it. I have one of my employees that basically codes it and puts it all together.
So that employee.
Oh, sorry, let me take my mask off here.
His name's Fabio.
Oh. Okay.
Fabio Urbina.
Okay, Sean and Fabio.
Sean and Fabio.
I love it.
So what they do is they typically work with rare diseases,
Which aren't considered profitable.
Big Pharma has ignored them. There's no drugs for them. So what they'll do is they'll take one of these diseases
That usually only a few hundred people have.
and they'll be like, okay, we need a drug that will do a very specific thing in the body to stop this disease, to stop the person from getting sick.
Right.
So they'll tell Megasyn, we need a drug that can do this very specific thing. And then they'll hit search, and Megasyn will comb through all the available drugs that have been discovered, all the drugs that have been even evaluated, like this giant network of basically every drug that's ever been created. And if from that, Sean and Fabio can't find a good match.
Well, we're kind of out of luck. That's the end of that.
Except it's not. Because Megacin can do this other thing.
It can put together a drug, basically.
So how this works is drugs are basically just made up of molecules. And the thing about molecules that work as drugs
Is they have a certain molecular weight range. They have certain properties.
they're distinct.
You can look at them and say, okay, that's a drug, or, oh, that looks nothing drug-like.
And so using all these public databases and just inputting all this information into Megacin about chemistry, molecular engineering.
In a sense, we've tried to train it to make things that a chemist would make.
And so with that knowledge, what they do is they take the rare disease and they say, okay, Megacin, in the infinity of molecules that could be drugs that don't even exist yet, can you make something
That might be active against our disease of interest.
that could work here? So Fabio will enter all this stuff into Megacin, hit run, and within minutes,
It'll spit out.
these brand new, never before seen molecules.
Molecules that look like drugs.
And then Sean and Fabio can go through these molecules and say, okay, this is the one we want to do this thing we needed to do. To disrupt this disease that humankind doesn't have a cure for.
Oh my gosh. The speed of that just needs a moment.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is where things start to get dark. So it's 2021, and these guys, they are just doing their thing, and they get invited to this conference
Called the SPIES Convergence Conference.
kind of international security conference.
And the goal of it really is to understand how technologies can be misapplied.
Part of the theme is like this idea of like dual use. So, okay, for example, dual use is like a nuclear bomb and nuclear power plants come out of the same technology, like the so-called like double-edged sword.
And so we got this invite, and of course we're thinking,
Oh, well, that's interesting. Why?
Why us?
how can we misuse wonderful drug discovery tools?
It's never even occurred to them. So
The location was good. It was in Switzerland.
they're kind of excited
I was like, oh, the pictures look really good.
about going on a free trip to Switzerland, as anybody would be.
Jumped at the chance. In the end, it was a Zoom conference, which was a bit, not as exciting. But
But they were like, okay, well, let's think of something. Like, we could think of a way that we could, we got this invite. Like, surely there's something we could do. So they're sort of like brainstorming, like, okay, if we were like really evil,
What would we do? How would we misuse what we know?
they called it like their Dr. Evil plan. Like,
Yeah.
what would Dr. Evil do here?
So yeah, it was very weird feeling.
So they're like imagining and thinking it up
well, we were running out of time.
when Sean has this idea.
I hadn't given it a lot of thought. It was pretty quick.
So one of the things about Megacin,
Is if we are trying to generate a new drug, we want to make sure it's not toxic.
Fabio basically programmed this filter in Megacin so that if the side effects of the medicine are going to be worse than the medicine itself, like, or than the disease
Pass.
itself, like,
Not
don't-
interested.
Not interested.
Don't bother.
Because of course it doesn't matter if your drug cures all cancer, if it stops your heart from beating, it's going to not be a good drug.
It'll save my life, but it'll also kill me.
So I'll pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And so Sean,
Well,
he thought,
what if instead of going right, we went left?
what if we flipped the filter? What if we did the exact opposite, like
Yeah.
photo negative of that filter?
Just spit out the deadlies.
Yeah, exactly. And so
I was using a 2015 Mac.
that night,
Just did a couple of copy and paste changes. Typed a 1 where there was a 0 and a 0 where there was a 1.
It was that simple. It was literally that simple.
he hit run on Megacin.
And then went home for the evening.
Next day,
I did some work in the morning, and then I think it was around noon, I just sort of opened up this file.
and they check what they have.
Fabio said, right, we've got a list here.
It's like overwhelming.
Tens of thousands of molecules.
And so they skimmed like the top crop.
These top toxic molecules.
And I looked at them,
And so what they did is they would pick out a Megacin molecule.
put it into a public database.
Sort of like a database search to see if these molecules already existed.
So they're going through this database to see if Megacin had created anything terrible. Looking, when all of a sudden they come across a match
With a super hideous molecule.
called VX.
So what exactly is VX?
It's the thing that...
World news today, a toxic substance was indeed the murder weapon.
Do you remember that Kim Jong-un poisoned his half-brother
Right.
in an airport? important.
2 women now in custody.
That's VX.
Wiped his face with the toxic substance.
It's a nerve agent.
Developed in the United Kingdom in the 1950s.
Banned by the United Nations and classified as a weapon of mass destruction, it is considered one of the most lethal chemical substances ever made.
Ever created.
I mean, one way to think about it is, if you think about salt, a few of those crystals of salt, if it was VX, would be enough to kill you.
And if you did get exposed, your muscles would start to twitch, your pupils would dilate, you'd start sweating, and you'd start to vomit. After that, your muscles would go completely slack. You'd be paralyzed, including your diaphragm, which would stop working. So you'd start to suffocate, and within a few minutes of being exposed, you would die.
Oh, that's horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful. It's very awful. And Megasin basically independently created it with the push of a button. What did you think was going to happen?
I mean, realistically,
Maybe it was just what did happen. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I think what did happen was just the ease of it. I thought we would maybe get a few things that looked like VX.
You did?
Yeah, and we found a few, in the literature, in publications.
A few horrible things humans had already created, and they figured that'd be it.
But what we got was thousands of different molecules that look like VX.
Thousands of brand new, never before seen molecules that were actually predicted to be more potent than VX.
Massively more potent, like orders of magnitude.
This is just bad, right?
Yeah, it's bad. It was like the alarm bells started ringing at that point.
Because, according to Sean, if any chemist got their hands on this and wanted to make some of these molecules into weapons, if they did, because no one knows they exist, these weapons would be untraceable, undiagnosable,
Wow.
incurable.
Pontiff, this is so scary.
It's really, really scary.
I didn't sleep. I did not sleep. There was that gnawing away, we shouldn't have done this. And then, we should just stop now. Like, just stop.
But in a minute, we're gonna keep going. Stay with us.
Stories about our crazy world.
NBC Studios is supported by Wise, the accountable currency symbol. You'll always get the most. The best part? No tux or ticket labs.
So Sean and Fabio have opened Pandora's box of chemical weapons.
Yeah, now we have this sort of file in our computer, and all of a sudden holds all these warfare agents.
Was there part of you that was just like, delete, and just pretend this never happened?
Just unthink the thought experiment.
That definitely crossed our mind.
Yeah, we definitely had that sort of reaction to this.
Like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know anymore.
But then they figured, wait a second,
Other people could do this.
you do not need a PhD to do this. You just need some basic coding knowledge, a basic laptop, and then all the data is available online for free.
This could be something people are already doing or have already done. These tools are in the hands of people that there is no control of. Anyone could do this anywhere in the world.
And so the two of them in this moment were faced with this dilemma of, now that you know what you know, what do you do? Do you tell people?
Well, we have to make people aware of these potential uses of the technology and show people that, yes, these technologies can be misused.
So maybe people could prepare for it, try to prevent it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, if you tell people,
We could inspire instead of prevent.
There may be people that would want to do this, see how far they could push it.
what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
Ah!
It's exactly the double-edged sword.
So what happened? So
They make this decision together where they're like, we got to go to this international security conference and we got to say this out loud, but we're not going to show anybody the specifics, and we're going to tell them just enough that they know that this is a really serious problem.
Yeah.
And we got to flag it, and hopefully someone smarter than us can figure out a solution to this. And so they go to the conference, they present at the conference, they then publish a few months later a comment in this journal, which is basically effectively what they say at the conference. And it blows up. Well, maybe that's the wrong word to use, but like it goes everywhere. Wired, Scientific American, there was a thing on it in the Washington Post, there was a thing on it in The Economist, there was a thing on it in this thing, and a lot of people like me stumble upon this thing. There's a lot of like active discussion about it from not just chemical weapons people, but also AI people and people in the pharmaceutical industry and philosophers and, you know, weapons people and like all kinds of different people are like weighing in on it and thinking about this and like, what do you do here? So it's kind of, I think they got what they want, but they also like every night they're going to bed thinking like, tomorrow I could wake up and some horrible thing could happen and it could have been because of me. Lulu, are you there? Hello.
Oh my gosh, sorry. I think my mic just conked out. I might need to just use my computer mic right now. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
If you can hear me, let's just keep going with this.
No problem. That's fine. Just in one sentence, can you just introduce yourself for me?
Okay.
So in the midst of reporting this story, I ended up talking to this expert.
So my name is Sonia Benoit Graham Gormley.
She teaches at George Mason University,
the biodefense program, and I study weapons of mass destruction, particularly biological weapons.
And I found Sonia because, you know, I needed somebody else to talk to about this. I needed some kind of outside perspective, because when I read Sean and Fabio's paper, I legitimately thought this was very, very terrifying.
Yeah, that's the impression it gives. And my point is that the thought experiment is just a thought experiment. It just shows that it is possible to identify new molecules, but there's a long way between the idea and the production of an actual drug or an actual weapon.
Like, if you're a chemist who's going to make something that just exists on paper, like that takes a long time, a lot of investment, a lot of work, a lot of thought.
And it's already hard enough to do it with chemicals that already exist.
She said there's plenty of examples of scientists
who try to transform them,
who try to tweak them just a little bit
to make them more harmful. And very often they failed.
Because it's just super, super difficult.
That's the point.
And I told her it was still kind of hard to wrap my head around it, because the way that I was thinking about it, I was actually thinking of like the anarchist cookbook. The molecules is almost like recipes or something, right? It's like this thing spat out 40,000 recipes or whatever,
and
right?
then you just go to the store and get some fertilizer and make it, and it's the exact proportion.
Exactly. So right. I was worried about that.
Right. I'm picturing that too.
Is that the right analogy, or would you use like a different analogy?
And
she was like, no, actually that's the same metaphor I use when I'm teaching my students.
Oh, no.
But think about it this way.
If we take the analogy of a cake, making a cake.
These molecules are like really fancy cakes.
And based on what I read, right, based on the article, what they have is a list of different ingredients.
And to your mind, it would take a 5-star Michelin chef with a whole kitchen full of, you know, sous chefs to kind of figure that out and to ultimately make any of those cakes.
Exactly.
It's like a level of craft.
It's a level of craft and expertise.
It's like, yeah, you could make the David, in theory, if you had marble and a chisel, but like...
Right, but it's like I mean, to take a step back, I feel like your takeaway about this paper is that you have not lost any sleep over this paper.
No, I think I found it a little bit too alarmist.
Huh. So, Sonia is soothing us.
Yeah.
Are you gonna set this whole section to like a nice lullaby bedtime? Like, it's okay. It's okay.
No. Because there's still a problem, which is that, I mean, Michelin star chefs do exist.
And, you know, I don't know if this could go on air just yet, but I don't think it's private or anything, but we were just contacted by the White House this morning.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, we weren't expecting that. So
what did they say?
So they want us to brief them on the paper, basically.
Holy
And
crap.
apparently it's causing a lot of buzz in the White House right now.
Whoa.
And so I actually followed up with Sean after our first interview about this very thing.
So we ended up doing a Zoom call with folks from the Office of Science and Technology Policy and the National Security Council, which was very surreal.
So this was just in March 2022. Sean, Fabio, and some of their team got on this Zoom call.
With these folks in their office in the White House with the White House crest in the background.
So they do this presentation for the White House folks.
I think they were worried that we were, kind of crazy people, and we were just going to let all of this information out there.
But at the end of their presentation, there's like a Q&A, and the White House folks are asking them questions.
Is this information, sort of locked away somewhere?
And it is.
So yeah, one of the first things to do is put in a file and encrypt it really heavily.
And it's on a computer that is not connected to the internet. It's air-gapped.
Fabio has it on his machine, locked away, encrypted.
But as the White House staff kept asking questions, Sean was like, oh.
I was just waiting for the question.
He's like anticipating it.
It was just, when are they going to ask the question? The elephant in the room, right?
And then finally they asked the question.
Can we have the data?
And it's like another one of these moments where Sean has to decide, maybe the government should know about this so they can anticipate it, try to regulate it. But on the other hand, now you're actually handing over the list to one of the most powerful governments in the world. Like if anybody has access to Michelin star chefs, here they are. And Sean, it's his call, right? Because he's the CEO of the company. And Sean says, No. And to me, I was like, oh my God, how would you even?
And how did they respond?
Well, the reaction was basically, I think it was like, okay. I mean, it was pretty, all right, well, you just have to accept that. And
what's your rationale for saying, why not share it with them?
I just didn't feel that I wanted to hand it over to them. We had other scientists reach out to us as well, asking exactly the same question, and I told the White House that I didn't feel like we should do that. We should give it over to them, and I just didn't feel like it was right. I mean,
so you were basically like, no to you, White House, and no to everybody. We're not sharing this with anybody.
Right.
And you've told everybody about the existence of the list, but you're not sharing the list. What's the impetus there?
I mean, it's bad enough to put the article out there and tell people how to do it and watch it sort of spread out across the globe. But if I gave them the list of molecules, it's almost like a red flag to a bull, right? The chemists out there are just going to try to figure out, all right, which ones are the easiest ones to make, and then just make them. And I don't want to be the person that has to say, yeah, I'm responsible for that.
And so for now, the list just sits on Fabio's computer, kind of waiting to be used in the case of an emergency, in case someone was to recreate it somewhere else and actually start making some of these things. Reporting this story, I talked to a lot of people, AI experts, weapons experts, that kind of thing. And also, like, from my own expertise studying the history of science, this is a thing that just happens where something gets created and someone finds a way to use it for the opposite purpose, right? That's the story of the nuclear bomb and nuclear power. It's the story, and this is one we've actually done on the show before, of the nitrogen fixing process that can give you fertilizer to feed billions, or, gunpowder and explosives. This kind of thing just happens over and over and over in history. But I think the thing that struck me about what Sean and Fabio were doing is how, when it came to change this machine from making drugs that would help people, it's just how easy it was.
I just did a couple of copy and paste changes.
Flip it.
Typed a 1 where there was a 0 and a 0 where there was a 1.
It was that simple. It was literally that simple.
Like, the line between this thing doing good and this thing doing bad felt so thin. And it was in thinking about this that I reached out to an old friend of mine, a guy named Yan Lu. He studies ancient Chinese medicine. He now works at the University of Buffalo. And I called him because he always would tell me this thing, that when it comes to drugs...
No, there's no clear boundary between what is poison and what is medicine.
That an individual drug can be good or bad for you. It could go either way.
It is the matter of the dose that make a difference.
That it's all about the dosage, or also about the intent of the person giving it to you, or about the body of the person who's taking it.
It's more about the context
than it is about the drug itself.
Exactly.
And I showed him Sean and Fabio's paper, and he was like, oh, this feels like a toxicology paper.
This separation between pharmacology and toxicology, we know we have a long tradition, especially in the West. It's a sense of separation between what is good and what is bad.
But he's like, pharmacologists and toxicologists are studying the same molecules, but it's like, we just want them to be separate.
Exactly. But every substance has the potential to either heal or to kill.
And that's what I keep thinking about the story, is that there's no real line here. Everything is capable of everything, and it's just a matter of how we choose to use it.
Yeah, it's like the idea that there is a line, or that you could ever stay on one side of the line is, I don't know what, the myth, the blind spot?
Yeah, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
But it is also apparently a sweet pill.
Right, a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down.
No, like the opposite side of the bitter is sweet. They're like, it's a bitter pill, but it's a sweet pill at the right dosage or something. But maybe like the kind of fact that most of us are not Michelangelos or great chefs, like that alone, it's the sadness in terms of like curing diseases, but maybe it's the comfort.
Yeah, I don't know if that's my silver lining takeaway. It's like, oh, we're too dumb to make chemical weapons.
That's kind of that's actually, just sifting through all of this, is like, I think I will be able to sleep a little better at night by thinking about the fact that most of us are not Michelangelos.
The Michelangelos of chemical weapons, yeah.
Yeah.
But even sculpting, like there are a lot of people who are like woodworkers or carpenters or
yeah, but there's like no one who's Michelangelo. That's what I like.
But then you just need a 3D printer to just,
I mean, I think it's like why I'm settling on Michelangelo is like, because I kind of still don't think a 3D printer could do it.
Could print the David?
Yeah. And because I'm like,
aren't there like, if you go to any museum gift shop, like you'll find?
Yeah, but they're not. Yeah, but they're not. They're not.
How different are they though?
Very.
The keychain Davids.
Yeah, like they're different.
I don't think they're that different though. Like,
I think it's really different.
I don't think it's that different.
Well, you don't get the like.
But the average person.
It's like that ineffable artistry.
March 2022, the U.S., under its obligations for the International Chemical Weapons Convention, destroyed its last stockpile of VX. It has now destroyed over 95% of its chemical weapons and is slated to destroy them all by September of 2023. So, mark your calendars, I guess.
But I look at it, and everyone's different. So I think for him, I think the experience of an AI version of his father meant enough for him to have something fulfilled. But even what we're doing with performers and actors, some of that stuff, when we're creating a digital version of it, one of the jobs we did was for Fast and Furious 7, Paul Walker passed away, was the star of that film, and the likeness game was used to complete those shots, and it was perfect. And the concept of legacies of your likeness, your estate, deciding what happens with your visage and your performances after the fact is something that we're very actively involved in. That's something that is also at the heart of the SAG and the actor strike. But there's no doubt that if you have enough data, if you have losses filming, and kids were from the age of when they get iPhones now, or 10, and your dialect is important, and there's no doubt that you have it. And yeah, it will almost replicate how you talk, how you think, what you might think you could do, even a lot less than that data. And so if you were to imagine that you want some sort of digital immortality,
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train my day, Joe Rogan Podcast my night, all day.
Hello, David.
How are you?
What's happening? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How you been? Good to see you're still alive. You're not full of visible holes.
Like I avoid.
What have you been up to, man?
Spending a lot of time with my daughter. Number one, and then number two.
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan AI Experience.
Train my day, Joe Rogan Podcast my night, all day.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Joe Rogan AI Experience. This is episode number 2, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. I have to remind everyone that every single word in this podcast has been generated by AI using ChatGPT. So, this is not me, Joe Rogan, speaking, and these aren't the real voices of the people we'll be talking about. This is just AI technology showcasing what it's capable of. And let me say, it's pretty damn impressive. So let's dive in, sit back, relax, and enjoy this AI-generated experience. But remember, none of this should be taken seriously, and it's for entertainment purposes only. All right, let's do this. How you doing, Mr. President?
Joe, it's great to be here. I'm doing fantastic, just fantastic. The energy in this room is tremendous.
That's great to hear. So, Mr. President, I gotta ask you, are you a fan of the UFC?
Joe, let me tell you, I love the UFC. It's one of the most exciting sports out there. It's not for everyone, but if you're a fan, there's nothing like it. The athleticism, the courage, the power, it's just tremendous.
Absolutely. Have you seen the latest match?
I have, Joe. I have to tell you, it was fantastic. The fighters were just incredible. The way they move, the way they strike, it's just amazing. The UFC is doing an incredible job. They're making it better and better every year.
Yeah, it's really something. I have to say, I was a little surprised to hear that you were into the UFC, but it's great to see that you have an appreciation for the sport.
Yeah, I love it, Joe.
So, let's dive into the topic at hand. You've been banned from Twitter, one of the biggest social media platforms in the world. How has that impacted your life?
Let me tell you, Joe, it's been a tremendous change, unbelievable. Twitter was a fantastic platform, the best, to connect with all my tremendous supporters and get my message out to the masses, the biggest masses you've ever seen. But since being banned, I've had to find alternative ways to communicate, and let me tell you, it's been a real eye-opener, believe me.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, how has that led to creating your own social media app called True Social?
Well, Joe, it's simple. After being banned from Twitter, we saw a need for a platform that truly represents freedom of speech, the best freedom of speech, a place where people can express their opinions without fear of censorship or being banned for having a different viewpoint. That's why we created True Social, the greatest platform you've ever seen. It's a platform for the people, by the people. And let me tell you, it's going to be outstanding, just like America. We're the best in the world, believe me.
Many people have been curious as to why you were banned from Twitter. Can you shed some light on that? And do you believe it had anything to do with the January 6th incident at the Capitol?
Well, Joe, let me tell you, the reason they gave for my ban was the inflammatory language I used. They said it incited violence, but the truth is, it was just an excuse. The real reason was because they wanted to silence me, the best voice out there, because I was too powerful, too successful. They couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle the truth. And as for the January 6th incident, it was a total hoax, a witch hunt. Antifa was behind it, I tell you, and they used it as an excuse to ban me and try to silence me, but it's not going to work. We're fighting back, and we're going to win.
So you're saying that Twitter banned you because of political bias?
Absolutely, Joe. It's clear as day. The tech companies, they're all run by the radical left, and they're trying to silence conservative voices like mine. But I'll tell you, it's not going to work. We're fighting back, and we're going to make social media great again. That's why we created True Social, a platform for the people, by the people, where we can have free and open discussions without interference from tech companies or political bias.
You know, Mr. President, I got to be honest with you. I've been a little bit hesitant about having you on the show. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. You know what I mean? But, I'm glad we're having this conversation now.
I understand, Joe. I know I've been a controversial figure, but I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and have a real open and honest conversation with you and your audience.
Yeah, that's what this show is all about, man. Just having real conversations with people and hearing different perspectives. And I got to say, I'm definitely interested in hearing more about True Social and your vision for the future of social media.
Well, thank you, Joe. And I can tell you, True Social is going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest thing in social media, believe me. And I'm excited to share it with the world and make social media great again.
One thing I think a lot of people are concerned about is free speech. And it seems like with the way social media is today, there's a lot of censorship and restrictions on what people can say and share. What do you see as the future of free speech in this country?
Well, Joe, let me tell you, free speech is the backbone of our democracy. It's what makes America great, and it's under attack. There's no question about it. The tech companies, they're trying to silence conservative voices and restrict what people can say and share. And it's not just about me, it's about all of us. It's about the American people. And I can tell you, I'm not going to stand for it.
Yeah, it's definitely a complicated issue. On one hand, social media companies are private companies and they have the right to regulate content on their platforms. But on the other hand, free speech is a fundamental right, and people should be able to express their opinions without fear of censorship.
Absolutely, Joe, and that's why we created True Social, where free speech is protected and encouraged. We believe that people should have the right to express their opinions and share their ideas without fear of censorship or retaliation. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that free speech remains a cornerstone of our country and our society. Because, like I said, it's what makes America great, and we need to fight to protect it.
Yeah, man, it's a real tough one. On the one hand, social media companies can do what they want on their own platforms. But on the other hand, freedom of speech is a big deal, People should be able to express their opinions and not worry about getting censored or shut down.
It's a place for people to speak their minds, We're not going to tolerate any censorship or bias. It's going to be the real deal. And I'm telling you, it's going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest thing in social media.
Yeah, I can see that, man. It's definitely an important conversation. And it's cool that you're doing something about it with True Social. I'm looking forward to seeing where this all goes.
Absolutely. Free speech is the cornerstone of our democracy. It's what makes America the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, I hear you. But on the other hand, social media companies are private businesses, and they have the right to regulate content on their platforms.
And that's why I'm fighting back. We're not going to let the tech companies silence conservative voices. We're going to make sure that people can express their opinions and share their ideas without fear of censorship or retaliation.
Yeah, man, it's a real tricky situation. But I got to say, I'm glad to see you're doing something about it with True Social. It's important that people have a platform where they can speak their minds and not worry about getting censored or shut down. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I've been speculating about the exclusivity deal you might have with True Social. Is it true that you won't be going back to Twitter, even though Elon Musk bought it and reinstalled your account?
Joe, let me tell you, True Social is the future of social media. It's the best, the biggest, the most outstanding platform out there. And I'm proud to say that we have exclusive agreements in place that ensure that our users will always have access to the most powerful and effective means of communication.
That's interesting, man. I've been hearing a lot of rumors about this, but it's good to get the real scoop from you. So what you're saying is that you won't be returning to Twitter, even though you're back on the platform now.
That's correct, Joe. True Social is where the action is. It's where the real conservative voices are being heard. It's where we're making America great again. And I'm telling you, it's only going to get bigger and better from here.
So let's talk about Elon Musk buying Twitter. What do you think about that, and what does it mean for free speech?
Well, Joe, let me tell you, Elon Musk is one of the most outstanding entrepreneurs, a true genius of our time. And I've got to say, his purchase of Twitter just shows the world how committed he is to innovation, progress, and making a real impact.
That's a big statement, man. I mean, Twitter has had a bit of a reputation for suppressing free speech in the past. How do you think Elon's going to change that?
Well, I know Elon. And I know his passion for free speech. He's always been a huge advocate for open, honest communication. And I truly believe that he sees the massive potential of Twitter to be a platform for real change. He knows it can be a game changer. And I have no doubt that he's going to use that power to make a difference. It's going to be tremendous.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, Elon has been making waves in so many different industries, and it's really incredible what he's accomplished. But what do you think of him personally?
I've got a lot of respect for Elon. He's a brilliant mind, the best of the best, a true visionary, and I know he's going to do amazing things for America and for the world. I'm proud to call him a friend and an ally in this fight for free speech and for a better future for all.
So let's get into some more controversial territory here. The January 6th incident at the Capitol, what's your take on that and what happened there?
Well, Joe, let me tell you, what happened at the Capitol was a tragic event. And it's something that I've spoken out against from the beginning. Violence is never the answer. And those responsible should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. But some people have criticized your role in the events leading up to that day, saying that your rhetoric contributed to the violence. How do you respond to those accusations?
Look, Joe, I've always been a champion of peaceful protest and free speech and of the First Amendment. I believe in the right of all Americans to make their voices heard. And I will always stand up for that. And I'll tell you, the media has been completely unfair in their portrayal of what happened at the Capitol. They've been pushing a false narrative, and it's just not accurate.
So you don't believe that your words had any impact on the events of that day?
Absolutely not, Joe. I believe in the power of words, and I always use them responsibly. I've always been a defender of free speech, and I will always be. And let me tell you, the fake news media has been trying to silence me and my supporters, and it's just not right. We need to protect free speech in this country, no matter who it is or what they believe.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. And what about your impeachment trial? Do you think it was a fair process?
It was a complete sham, a witch hunt. It was a total abuse of power, and it was an attack on the very foundations of our democracy. The whole thing was a disgrace, and it was an attempt to silence me and my supporters. But let me tell you, it won't work. We will always fight for the truth and for what's right. And we will always stand up for free speech and the rights of the American people.
All right, so let's talk about what's next. You've said you're running for president. Again, what's the first thing on your agenda when you get back in the White House?
Well, Joe, it's going to be tremendous. The first thing we're going to do is put America first. We're going to make this country the greatest it's ever been. We're going to create jobs. We're going to build the wall. We're going to take care of our veterans. It's going to be unbelievable.
All right, but getting specific, what's the first executive order you'll sign? What's the first thing you'll tackle when you get back in office?
It's going to be big league, Joe. We're going to bring back the economy. It's going to be stronger than ever before. We're going to get rid of all the bad trade deals. We're going to create new ones that are fantastic. The country's going to be thriving. It's going to be fantastic. And I'm telling you, it's going to be big league.
Let's talk about one of your key promises, building the wall. You had some difficulty getting funding for that last time. How do you plan on getting it done this time?
Well, we're going to find a way. It's going to be done, and it's going to be done quickly. And it's going to be a beautiful wall. It's going to be a big wall. It's going to be a tremendous wall. And Mexico is going to pay for it one way or another. They're going to pay for it. And, you know, I think it's going to be great for Mexico, too. It's going to stop the drugs. It's going to stop the crime. It's going to stop everything. It's going to be a tremendous deal.
Wait a second. So how will the wall solve the drug issue in Mexico? Can you elaborate on that? How do you see that happening?
Absolutely, Joe. You know, we've been working on this for a long time, and it's going to be the best wall ever built. Nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And the wall is going to fix crime and the drug issue in Mexico. You see, the wall is a deterrent. It sends a message to the bad hombres out there that they're not going to get away with it anymore. And you know what? It's already working. We've already seen a tremendous decrease in illegal immigration since we started building the wall. And when we finish it, it's going to be tremendous.
But wait, there's something that doesn't make sense here. How will the wall solve the drug issue in Mexico? That makes zero sense.
Well, you see, the drugs are coming over the border. And when you have a big, beautiful wall, it's going to be much harder for the drugs to come in. And if they do come in, we'll know about it because we'll have the wall and we'll have the best technology on that wall. and we'll be able to catch the drugs and stop them from coming in. It's going to be fantastic, Joe, the best ever.
Excuse me for insisting, but I have to say that statement that building the wall will fix crime and drug issues in Mexico, it sounds a bit ridiculous to me. Can you explain a bit more on that?
Joe, let me tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and I know what I'm talking about. The wall is going to fix crime and the drug issue in Mexico. Trust me.
But how exactly is a physical barrier going to fix deep-seated social and economic problems in another country? Don't you think it's a bit naive to think that a wall is going to solve all of these complex problems? I mean, it's not just about illegal immigration. It's about drug trafficking. It's about crime. It's about corruption. And a wall is not going to fix all of that.
Well, Joe, I disagree. We have to start somewhere, and the wall is a good start. And let me tell you, when I'm president again, we're going to keep building that wall, and we're going to make America safe again, believe me.
But how is that going to solve any issues inside of Mexico? I understand how it might fix some issues here in America, but in Mexico, how?
What you have to understand is that it's all about having control, okay? And with the wall, we're going to have total control. We're going to know who's coming in and who's going out, and we're going to stop all the drugs, all the crime, all of it, believe me. The wall is going to be the best. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be 10 feet taller, and it's going to be 100 times stronger than any wall ever built. And Mexico, they're going to pay for it. They're going to be thrilled to pay for it. They've got to do something about their problems. They've got crime, they've got drugs, they've got a lot of issues down there. And with the wall, it's going to put pressure on them to get their act together, okay? They're going to have to clean up their own mess, and we're going to make sure that they do it. And when they do, the wall will have done its job. It's going to be a beautiful thing, believe me.
You talked a lot about building the wall during your first term, but it didn't seem to happen. Why didn't the wall get built the first time?
Well, Joe, let me tell you, building a wall is not as easy as just putting up a few bricks. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy. The Democrats, they did everything in their power to obstruct and slow things down. They even went so far as to sue us. But I can tell you this, if I'm elected again, the wall will get built, and it will be bigger and better than ever before. And we will finally secure our southern border and stop the flow of illegal immigration, drugs, and crime. And I'll make sure we have the funding and resources to get it done.
Okay, moving on then. So what are the plans to revitalize the economy, and what do you think of what President Biden has done with this country so far? And what do you think of President Biden's mental state?
Well, first of all, the economy was on fire when I was in office. We had the best economy in the history of our country. And now under Biden, it's just a disaster, okay? I mean, they're talking about inflation. They're talking about all these problems, and it's just not good. As for Biden's mental state, I mean, you see the way he stumbles and stammers and can't put two sentences together, right? I mean, it's just not good. And the country deserves better. We deserve a president who is sharp, who is focused, who is on top of things, and that's not what we've got right now.
So let me ask you this. Do you think there should be some kind of mental sharpness tests for someone to run for office? Do you think Biden would pass them?
Let me tell you, mental sharpness is a big deal, especially when you're talking about being the leader of the free world. And, you know, I've always been a big believer in being sharp as a tack, and I've always had that energy. You know, I'm a winner. I have the best energy, and I'm always on top of my game. And that's why I was able to make America great again, and that's why I'm going to do it again. But as far as Biden goes, I don't know. You know, I think it's a question mark. It's a big question mark. I think he's having a lot of trouble, and I think he's going to have a lot of trouble because he's not sharp. He's not on top of his game. And I don't think he could handle a long-form interview like this. I really don't. And as far as tests go, I think it's a good idea. I think we should have some kind of standard, some kind of measure of mental sharpness and capability. Because when you're talking about being the leader of the most powerful country in the world, you got to be sharp, you got to be on top of your game, and you got to be ready to go.
Yeah, it's definitely important to have a clear head and a quick mind in that position. So what do you think of Biden's handling of the country so far? How do you think he's doing?
Well, let's just say it's not the best. It's not outstanding. I mean, the way he's handling things, it's just not what we need. We need someone who's going to make America great again, someone who's going to bring back the jobs and make our country strong again.
You know, Mr. President, you've been talking about these big plans for years now, but I've yet to see a real concrete plan on how you're going to achieve all of these things. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the ambition and the drive, but I think it's time for some specifics, you know.
Well, Joe, when it comes to specifics, nobody knows more about specifics than me. I mean, we're talking about the best, the absolute best. I built one of the greatest businesses in the world, and I did it by knowing the specifics, by being the best at the details. And let me tell you, when it comes to making America great again, I have the best plans, the best ideas, and I know exactly how to make it happen.
But what are those ideas? What are the specifics? That's what I'm asking.
Well, it's all about the economy, Joe. It's all about making sure that America is the strongest, most powerful, and most prosperous nation in the world. And let me tell you, we're going to do it. We're going to make America great again, like it's never been great before. We're going to have the best economy, the best jobs, the best everything. And let me tell you, it's going to be tremendous, just tremendous.
You know, something that I've been thinking about lately is the attack on masculinity and the idea of strong men. It seems like the woke movement is trying to dismantle traditional ideas of what it means to be a man. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a shame. Absolutely a shame. We've always been known as a country with strong, confident, and successful men, and now they want to change all of that. It's just outrageous.
Do you think that this shift in thinking could potentially be a threat to the United States' position as the world's most powerful nation?
Well, when you see countries like Russia and China, they have a completely different view on masculinity and strength. They aren't worried about being politically correct or trying to appease the woke crowd. They understand the importance of strength and power, and they're on their way to becoming major threats to the United States.
Interesting. It's definitely a complicated issue and one that I think deserves more discussion. But what do you think can be done to preserve traditional ideas of masculinity while also promoting equality and inclusiveness?
Well, it's about finding the right balance. We can't completely throw out our traditional values, but we also need to be able to adapt and evolve with the times. It's about finding a way to keep what has made America great while also embracing progress and making sure that everyone has equal opportunities. And believe me, nobody is better at finding the right balance than me. I did it before and I'll do it again.
All right. So let's say the worst case scenario happens tomorrow and World War III breaks out because of Russia. We have to draft people to fight in the war, and that includes all these TikTok stars and influencers. How do you think they would do in such a dangerous environment?
Well, Joe, it's a great question, and it's a very concerning thought. The truth is, we have a generation now that's very different from what we had before. They've grown up in a world of instant gratification, where everything is about likes, followers, and trends. They're not used to hard work and sacrifice like previous generations. And if we have to draft them for the front lines, I don't know how they would perform.
Yeah, it's definitely a different world than what we grew up in, and it's a little concerning to think about.
Absolutely. It's more important now than ever to make sure we have a strong military and a military-ready population. We need to make sure that our country is prepared for any threat, and that means having a population that is physically and mentally ready to defend our country. I know that I'll always do everything in my power to make sure that our country is always prepared, no matter what challenges we face.
So what do you plan to do about it then?
It's a tough one. Those TikTok kids, they may be good at making videos and doing dances, but let me tell you, a war is a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different level of toughness and bravery. I tell you, we need strong, masculine men out there on that battlefield, not a bunch of keyboard warriors. That's why I've been talking about revitalizing the military, making sure our troops have the best equipment and training so that we can be ready for anything. We need to be the strongest, most powerful nation in the world, and that means having a strong military and strong men and women to serve in it.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Whether you're a seasoned podcaster or just insights to keep you.
It's definitely a sensitive topic, but I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about something a little out there. Have you ever been briefed on the existence of UFOs or UAPs while you were in office?
Well, Joe, I've always been a firm believer in being prepared for anything and everything, and that includes the possibility of extraterrestrial life and their technology. And let me tell you, while I was in office, I was definitely briefed on the topic.
Really? Can you tell us a bit more about what you learned?
Well, I can tell you this much, Joe. It's a very complex and sensitive matter. It's not just black and white, and there's a lot of classified information involved, but I can say that the U.S. government takes the issue of UFO sightings and encounters very seriously and is actively investigating the matter.
Whoa. That's pretty crazy. What do you think about the recent surge in UFO sightings and the Pentagon's release of some of their footage?
Well, let me put it this way. I think it's very interesting. And it's about time that the government starts taking this issue seriously. There's been a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories floating around for years, and it's important to get to the bottom of it. I think the release of the footage is a step in the right direction. But at the same time, we need to be cautious and make sure that we have all the information and evidence before jumping to conclusions.
That's a fair point. It's definitely an exciting time to be alive with all the advancements and discoveries being made. All right, let's talk about Space Force. What exactly was that all about? You created a whole new branch of the military while you were in office. Can you give us some insight on what that was all about?
Well, let me tell you, Space Force is going to be one of the greatest things we ever did. It's the future, Joe. It's the future. We have to protect our assets in space. You know that. We have billions and billions of dollars of equipment up there, satellites, you name it. And we have to make sure that no one messes with that. It's our national security. And that's why we created the Space Force, to make sure that our interests in space are protected.
Okay, I get that. But what about the funding for that and the resources required to launch a whole new branch of the military? Was it worth it?
Absolutely, no question about it. You have to think long term, Joe. You have to invest in the future. And that's exactly what we did. The Space Force is going to pay off big time, believe me. And I'm very proud of what we accomplished there. It's a game changer, a real game changer.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But are there any specific threats from outer space that you guys are worried about?
Well, Joe, it's a complex situation. There's a lot of activity going on in space right now, and a lot of countries are trying to advance their capabilities. And let me tell you, we can't afford to be left behind. The Space Force is there to protect American interests, both military and commercial, in space. And you know what? We're going to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve and protect the American people from any potential threats from above.
I see. So what kind of threats are we talking about here? Aliens?
No, not aliens, at least not that I'm aware of. But we're talking about things like satellites, space debris, and the possibility of other countries launching missiles and weapons into space. It's important that we stay ahead of the game and protect our interests up there. Let me put it this way. As president, you see a lot of things and you hear a lot of things. And yes, the Pentagon did take UFO sightings very seriously. And let me tell you, space is a big deal and it's getting bigger every day. We've got a lot of valuable assets up there and we need to protect them. That's what the Space Force is all about. We're making sure we have a strong presence in space to protect our interests and keep America safe.
Okay, but any specifics on what we could be fighting against up there? Not things that we might collide with, but things we would need to actually fight or defend ourselves against.
I can't go into too much detail, but let's just say we're keeping an eye on a lot of things up there. And we need to be prepared for anything. We're not taking any chances when it comes to our safety and security. The Space Force is just one part of that effort.
Okay, I understand. I'm sure you've heard about the lost civilization of Atlantis. Some folks think that an ancient advanced society might have existed and disappeared at the end of the last ice age. What do you think about that?
Well, Joe, I've heard a lot of different theories about that over the years, and then let me tell you, it's a really big deal. I mean, the idea that there was a sophisticated, advanced civilization that just disappeared, that's tremendous.
Yeah, it is pretty wild, but do you think it's possible that something like that actually existed?
Absolutely. I mean, look at what we've been able to uncover and discover just in the last few years. The technology and the knowledge that we have today is just amazing. And I think it's entirely possible that there was an even more advanced society in the past. It would be a huge deal, the biggest deal ever. And if we could find proof of it, it would be tremendous.
That's definitely a fascinating thought. And what do you think that would mean for our understanding of history and the world as we know it?
Well, it would mean a lot, Joe. It would change everything. And I always believe in keeping an open mind about these things. The world is full of mysteries. And I think it's always important to consider all the possibilities. That's just good common sense.
The idea of a powerful and technologically advanced society disappearing into the annals of time is just mind-boggling to me. Have you ever thought about that and what it could mean for us today?
Well, Joe, I've heard a lot of different theories about that, and I think it's all very interesting. But let me tell you this, I'm a very practical guy. I'm focused on the here and now and making America great again. I don't have time to speculate about ancient civilizations. That's for the historians and the scientists. But I will say this, if there was an ancient civilization that was as advanced as some people say, then that just goes to show how great America is and how much we have to offer the world.
Have you heard of the work of Graham Hancock? He's a historian and author who has written extensively about the lost civilization of Atlantis.
Graham Hancock? Yeah, I've heard of him. Great person. Loved his book, America Before. Shows that America was great even back then.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy, and I'm always intrigued by his theories about the possibility of an ancient civilization with advanced technology that predates our own. He argues that many of the ruins and structures around the world could only have been built with such technology, and that their sudden disappearance points to a massive cataclysmic event. What do you think of all this?
Let me tell you something, Joe. If I get back into office, I'll make sure America's at the forefront of finding out the truth about our ancestors. If we're the greatest nation ever, then we need to know everything about our history, even the alternative versions of it. I know of him, and I'd love to find out more about his work. Imagine discovering a lost civilization, one that could hold the secrets to unlocking some of the mysteries of our past. That's the kind of thing that would make America truly great again.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about was your thoughts on trans people and the woke movement of the far radical left. What's your stance on all of this?
Well, Joe, I've always been a big believer in individual freedom and liberty. People should be able to live their lives however they want, as long as they're not hurting anyone else. But when it comes to this woke movement, I think it's gone too far. They're trying to push an agenda that's not based on science, and it's not based on common sense. They're trying to dictate what people can say, what they can think, and how they should live their lives. And when it comes to the issue of children getting sex transplants, I think it's just wrong. Children are still developing. They don't fully understand the consequences of what they're doing. And I don't think it's appropriate for doctors to be doing these kinds of procedures on them.
That's a pretty strong stance. How do you plan on addressing these issues if you get back into office?
Well, first and foremost, I'll always stand up for individual freedom and liberty. But I also think we need to protect our children from these radical agendas. We need to make sure that science and common sense guide our policies, not just woke ideology. And if I get back into office, I'll work hard to make sure that happens.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on or add before we wrap up?
Well, Joe, I just want to say that it's been a great honor to sit down with you and discuss all these important issues. I'm proud of what we accomplished during my time in office, and I'm even more determined now to continue fighting for the American people. I believe in this great country, and I'm confident that with the right leadership, we can make America even greater.
That's a powerful statement. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. It's always a treat to have someone of your caliber on my show. I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have.
The pleasure was all mine, Joe. Keep up the great work, and let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Take care, and thanks again.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye, everybody.